The sky over New Seattle was the color of bruised steel, heavy with the promise of rain that never seemed to fall anymore. Dr. Amara Okonkwo stood at the observation deck of the Xenobiology Research Institute, her reflection ghosting across the reinforced glass as she stared at the containment fields below. At 26, she was the youngest researcher ever admitted to the program, yet her colleagues treated her like a liability, a fragile thing that might shatter under the weight of real science. "You're still here?" The voice belonged to Dr. Vincent Cross, the head of the Apex Division, his tone dripping with the same condescension she'd endured for 3 years. He didn't wait for her response, brushing past her with a data pad clutched in his manicured fingers. "The council meeting starts in 10 minutes. Try not to embarrass us this time." Amara's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Words were useless against people who had already decided what she was worth. Instead, she followed him down the sterile white corridors, her footsteps echoing in rhythm with the hum of the building's environmental systems. The institute was a fortress of glass and titanium, built to study the creatures that had appeared on Earth 20 years ago. Beings from rifts in space-time that defied every law of biology humanity had ever known. The creatures were magnificent and terrifying. Some resembled animals from Earth's prehistoric past, while others seemed pulled from the collective nightmares of ancient civilizations. The government had established protocols: capture, study, contain, and when necessary, terminate. Amara had joined the institute, believing she could change that approach, that understanding these beings might reveal something profound about the universe itself. 3 years later, she was still filing reports no one read. The council chamber was a circular room dominated by a holographic projection table. 15 researchers sat in elevated seats, their faces illuminated by the cold blue glow of data streams. Amara took her place at the lowest tier, where junior staff were relegated to observe rather than contribute. Dr. Cross cleared his throat, and the room fell silent. "Colleagues, we've reached a decision regarding Subject 17, he announced, his voice carrying the weight of finality. The hologram shifted, displaying a creature unlike any Amara had seen before. It was massive, easily 4 meters tall, with a body that seemed to shift between solid and translucent, as if it existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Its form was vaguely lupine, but its limbs were too long, its eyes too numerous, 6 of them, arranged in a crown around its elongated skull. Tendrils of what looked like liquid light trailed from its shoulders, dissipating into the air like smoke. "This entity has proven impossible to study using conventional methods, Doctor," Cross continued. "It disrupts our equipment, injures our handlers, and shows no signs of docility. The Council has voted to proceed with termination at 0600 tomorrow." Amara's heart lurched. "Wait," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs of agreement. Every eye in the room turned to her, and she felt the familiar weight of their judgment. "We haven't exhausted all options. Subject 17's behavior suggests intelligence, not aggression. If we could establish communication—" "Dr. Okonkwo," Cross interrupted, his smile sharp enough to draw blood. "Your enthusiasm is noted, but this decision is final, unless you have data to support your hypothesis." She didn't. She had observations, intuition, a gut feeling that the creature was reacting to fear rather than malice. But in a room that worshipped empirical evidence, feelings were worthless. She sank back into her seat, her hands curling into fists against her thighs. The meeting continued, but Amara stopped listening. Her mind was already racing, calculating risks and consequences. She thought of her grandmother, who had raised her after her parents died in the first Rift event. The old woman had been a veterinarian in Lagos, a healer who believed that every living thing deserved compassion. "Animals are not our enemies, Amara," she used to say, her voice warm with conviction. "They are reflections of the world we've created. If they are angry, it is because we have given them reason to be. Amara made her decision. The containment wing was deserted at midnight. Amara had disabled the security feeds for her sector, a trick she'd learned from a disgruntled technician who owed her a favor. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and antiseptic, and the distant hum of the energy fields was a constant reminder of the danger she was walking into. Subject 17's cell was at the end of the corridor, a cube of reinforced alloy surrounded by 3 layers of electromagnetic barriers. Through the transparent section of the wall, Amara could see the creature huddled in the far corner, its body flickering like a dying star. Up close, it was even more otherworldly. Its skin seemed to ripple with colors that didn't exist in the visible spectrum, and the tendrils of light that emanated from it pulsed in a rhythm that reminded her of a heartbeat. She approached the control panel and hesitated. If she was wrong, if the creature truly was a threat, she would be dead before anyone could intervene. But if she was right, if there was even a chance that this being could be understood rather than destroyed, then she had to try. The first barrier deactivated with a soft chime. The creature's head snapped up, all 6 eyes locking onto her with an intensity that made her breath catch. She lowered the second barrier, her hands trembling now. The creature rose to its full height, and Amara realized just how small she was in comparison, barely reaching its chest. Its tendrils began to move faster, spiraling around its body in patterns that might have been defensive or curious. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. She knew it probably couldn't understand her words, but tone mattered. Her grandmother had taught her that. "I just want to talk, to understand." The creature tilted its head, a motion so eerily human that it sent a shiver down her spine. Slowly, deliberately, she lowered the final barrier. The space between them was empty now, nothing but 10 meters of cold concrete and the pounding of her own heartbeat. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then the creature took a step forward, its movements liquid and silent. Amara forced herself to stay still, even as every instinct screamed at her to run. Another step, another, until it stood directly in front of her, so close she could feel the strange warmth radiating from its body. One of its tendrils extended toward her, moving with the slow caution of someone reaching out to a wild animal. Amara closed her eyes and held out her hand. The tendril brushed against her palm, and the world exploded into light. She wasn't in the containment cell anymore. She was standing in a void, surrounded by stars that pulsed and sang in harmonies she could feel in her bones. The creature was there, but it looked different, more defined, as if the physical world had been a poor translation of its true form. It was beautiful, she realized, in a way that made her chest ache. "You see," a voice said, though it wasn't sound. It was a feeling, a resonance that bypassed her ears entirely. "You are the first to see." "What are you?" Amara asked, or thought she asked. Communication here was different, unbound by language. "We are what you call lost," the creature replied. "We did not choose to come here. The rifts took us from our world, scattered us across yours. We are afraid, alone." Amara felt tears prick her eyes. "They want to kill you," she said. "They think you're dangerous." "We are," the creature admitted. "When we are frightened, we defend ourselves, but we do not wish to harm. We wish only to return home." "I'll help you," Amara said, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. "I don't know how, but I'll find a way." The creature's presence wrapped around her like a blanket, warm and grateful. "You are small," it said, and she could sense something like amusement in the words. "But you are fierce. We will trust you, small one." The light faded, and Amara found herself back in the containment cell, her hand still resting against the creature's tendril. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. The creature knelt beside her, its movements protective, almost gentle. In that moment, she knew that everything had changed. She had touched the impossible, and it had touched her back. Morning came too quickly. Amara had spent the rest of the night in Subject 17's cell, documenting everything she could about their connection. The creature, she had started calling it Loomis after the light it radiated, seemed to understand her intent. It remained calm, even allowing her to take readings with her portable scanner, though the data it produced was unlike anything in the Institute's databases. At 5:30, the alarm on her datapad chimed. 30 minutes until the termination order was carried out. Amara's mind raced as she considered her options. She couldn't fight the entire Institute, and even if she managed to free Loomis, where would it go? The world outside was hostile, filled with people who saw creatures like Loomis as threats to be eliminated. Her datapad buzzed with an incoming call. Dr. Cross's face appeared on the screen, his expression cold. "Dr. Okonkwo, I need you in Lab 7 immediately. We have a situation." She ended the call without responding and turned to Loomis. The creature was watching her, its 6 eyes reflecting the overhead lights like prisms. "I need you to trust me," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "Can you make yourself smaller, less visible?" Loomis tilted its head, and then its form began to shift. The tendrils retracted, the body compressing until it was roughly the size of a large dog. It still glowed faintly, but in the dim light of the cell, it might pass for a trick of the eye. "Good," Amara whispered. "Stay close to me. Don't let anyone see you." She reactivated the barriers, leaving them on minimal power to avoid triggering alarms, and led Loomis out of the containment wing. The corridors were beginning to fill with early shift workers, and Amara kept her head down, her lab coat pulled tight around her. Loomis moved like a shadow at her heels, its presence a warm pressure against her mind. They were halfway to the emergency exit when a voice called out behind her. "Doctor Okonkwo!" She turned to see Dr. Yuki Tanaka, one of the few colleagues who had ever treated her with kindness. The older woman's eyes widened as she caught sight of Loomis, and for a heart-stopping moment, Amara was certain it was over. But then Yuki's expression softened. "You're making a run for it, aren't you?" she said quietly. Amara nodded, unable to form words. Yuki glanced around to ensure they were alone, then pulled a keycard from her pocket and pressed it into Amara's hand. "This will get you through the south gate. There's a transport station 2 kilometers from here. Take the 6:15 train to the outer districts. After that, you're on your own." "Why are you helping me?" Amara asked, her voice cracking. Yuki smiled, sad and knowing. "Because I was like you once. I believed we could do better. But this place," she shook her head, "it's not built for people who care. Go before I change my mind." Amara grabbed Yuki's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Yuki replied. "You've got a long road ahead." The outer districts of New Seattle were a stark contrast to the Institute's sterile halls. Here, the buildings were older, their facades streaked with grime and graffiti. The streets were crowded with people going about their lives, oblivious to the alien creature hidden beneath Amara's coat. She had wrapped Loomis in a thermal blanket, and to her relief, no one gave them a second glance. She found a small motel on the edge of the district, the kind of place that didn't ask questions as long as you paid in cash. The room was cramped and smelled faintly of mildew, but it had a lock on the door and a window that overlooked an alley. Amara barricaded the door with a chair and collapsed onto the bed, her body finally giving in to exhaustion. Loomis emerged from the blanket, its form expanding slightly now that it was safe. It moved to the window, its tendrils brushing against the glass as it stared out at the city. Amara watched it, her heart aching at the loneliness in its posture. "You miss your home," she said softly. "Yes," Loomis replied, the word a pulse of sorrow in her mind. "It is very far, very different from this place." "Can you show me?" Amara asked. "Your world?" Loomis turned to her, and once again the tendril extended toward her hand. This time the transition was smoother, and Amara found herself standing in a landscape that defied description. The sky was layered with colors she had no names for, and the ground beneath her feet pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Structures rose in the distance, organic and crystalline, blending architecture with nature in a way that seemed impossible. "This is home," Loomis said, and Amara could feel its longing like a physical thing. "We lived in harmony, no fear, No cages. It's beautiful, Amara whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry they took you from this. You did not take, Loomis said gently. You are trying to return. That is enough. When Amara opened her eyes, she was back in the motel room, but something had shifted inside her. She understood now that this wasn't just about saving one creature. It was about proving that coexistence was possible, that fear didn't have to dictate humanity's response to the unknown. Her datapad buzzed with notifications, dozens of messages from the Institute, all marked urgent. She ignored them and opened a secure line to an old friend, someone who operated outside the government's reach. Amara? The voice on the other end was cautious. I heard you went rogue. Please tell me you didn't do anything stupid. Define stupid, Amara said with a tired smile. I need your help, Leo. I need to find the rifts, the ones that are still open. There was a long pause. You want to send it back, Leo said, understanding dawning. Yes, Amara replied. Can you help me? It's going to be dangerous, Leo warned. The rifts are unstable, and the government monitors them constantly. If they catch you— They won't, Amara interrupted. I have to do this, Leo. It's the right thing. Another pause, then a sigh. All right, I'll send you coordinates. But Amara, be careful. The world isn't kind to people who challenge the system. I know, she said quietly. But I have to try. She ended the call and looked at Loomis, who was watching her with those luminous eyes. We're going to get you home, she promised, no matter what it takes. Loomis's presence wrapped around her mind, warm and trusting. You are fierce, small one, it said again. We are grateful. Amara smiled, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over her. For the first time in years, she knew exactly who she was and what she was meant to do. She was not weak. She was not a liability. She was the bridge between two worlds, and she would see this through to the end. Outside, the city hummed with life, unaware of the quiet revolution beginning in a rundown motel room. But Amara didn't need the world's approval. She had Loomis, and that was enough. Together, they would find a way. 3 weeks later, Amara stood at the edge of the Cascade Rift, a tear in reality that shimmered like oil on water. The journey had been grueling, dodging government patrols, navigating through abandoned zones, relying on the kindness of strangers who believed in a better way. Leo had come through with coordinates and equipment, and a small network of sympathizers had helped them reach this remote location in the mountains. Loomis stood beside her, its full form restored, towering and magnificent against the twilight sky. The rift pulsed in response to its presence, the colors intensifying, as if recognizing one of its own. Are you ready? Amara asked, her voice tight with emotion. Yes, Loomis replied. But we will miss you, small one. You have shown us that not all of your kind are driven by fear. And you've shown me that the universe is bigger and more beautiful than I ever imagined, Amara said, wiping at her eyes. Go home, Loomis. Tell your people that some of us are trying. Loomis extended a tendril one last time, and Amara grasped it, feeling the familiar rush of connection. In that moment, she saw Loomis's world again, but this time she saw herself there too. A memory, a story, a small human who had dared to care. Then Loomis stepped into the rift, and the light swallowed it whole. The tear in reality flickered, then sealed itself with a soft sound like a sigh. Amara stood alone, the wind whipping her hair around her face, her heart full and broken all at once. Behind her, Leo approached, his expression unreadable. The Institute is looking for you, he said. They're not going to stop. I know, Amara replied. But I'm not stopping either. There are more creatures out there, more rifts. If I can help even one more get home, it'll be worth it. Leo nodded slowly. Then you're going to need a team. I know a few people who might be interested. Amara turned to him, a smile breaking across her face. Let's get started. As they walked back down the mountain, the stars began to emerge overhead, countless and infinite. Somewhere out there, Loomis was home, and that thought filled Amara with a hope she hadn't felt in years. The fight was far from over, but she was no longer alone. She had proven that strength wasn't about physical power. It was about compassion, courage, and the willingness to stand up for what was right, no matter the cost. They had said she was too weak, but in the end she had tamed not a beast, but fear itself, and that, she realized, was the greatest victory of all.